Today we are going to talk about a man by the name of Jerome Elam, a man who survived child sex trafficking and has begun his own movement to try and put an end to it. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Killer Concepts, the place where we talk about all things true crime. My name is Peyton. Before we get started, please make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss any future content. I want to say that I apologize that I think we missed last week's video, and then I had trouble posting the one before that. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I have not been feeling the best the past couple days, but I definitely wanted to get this one to you, and it is a super important video, and I have other ones that I'm working on right now as well, so hopefully I can come up with a backlog for when I cannot get one out to you. I do want to give you an extra trigger warning for this one on top of what is already in my intro, as in this case, we will be talking about child sex trafficking and suicide. This past weekend, I went to a local maker's market with my mom and sister. It is kind of a tradition for us. And we stopped at a booth for an organization called Hope, Inspire, Love. This is an anti-human trafficking organization located in Lancaster, PA, that we see frequently at these types of events. They make clothing and sell it to help raise money for human trafficking awareness, as well as work with survivors by providing counseling and services. The sweatshirt I am actually wearing is something I purchased from them, so if you would like to learn more about them, I did link them down below in the description box. The reason I am bringing this up is because it inspired me to do another human trafficking survivor story, like I did with Teresa Flores. If you have not seen Teresa's story yet, please go check it out. It is incredible. This one, however, is a little bit different because we are talking about a man. I wanted to talk about Jerome Elam today because his story is incredibly sad. Of course, just like any other trafficking case, but mostly because of what he has overcome and is doing now. I also think people tend to forget that men and young boys are subject to sex trafficking, and just like women. It isn't just women, and people focus on them the most. With that being said, let me tell you about Jerome. A lot of what I tell you is actually going to be from his personal account, kind of like Teresa's. When Jerome Elam's mother became pregnant with him at only age 17, she would marry his father. But 3 short years later, they would end up divorcing, and a strong hatred would grow between the two. We already know that this kind of situation is never good for a child. According to Jerome, the reason his parents would eventually end up divorcing is because his father, when he came back from serving overseas in the army in the 1960s, he would come back as an extremely angry and volatile man. He would usually end up taking out on Jerome and his mother. Jerome's bio on the Department of Defense's website states, quote, "At 3 years old, the divorce of my parents would send me down a path dark and filled with bottomless depravity, where I would endure a hell that only a few have survived." End quote. Unfortunately, we already know what this dark path is, or we would not be talking about it. So per Jerome's account, his mother was, quote, "addicted to chaos," end quote, and this would lead them on a life of dysfunction. Jerome stated that after the divorce, his mother would sometimes disappear for days at a time, leaving him with his grandparents, and then would come back like she never even left. When Jerome was 5, his mother would meet a man named Neil and would enter a relationship with him. Neil would at first seem like a really good man. I'm sure this sounds very familiar to you. And he would bring the 5-year-old gifts, and he would take him to sporting events. and it wouldn't be long until he would marry Jerome's mother. However, Neil would begin to molest Jerome at his young age and would even use him for child pornography. Jerome's quest for stability would make him easier prey for a man like Neil. Predators are known to feed on those who have weaknesses, such as the situation Jerome and his mother lived in. So in order to keep Jerome quiet, Neil would threaten him with violence against his mother, and this is what would keep him quiet and keep him from speaking out against the man that was hurting him. From what I have read, it does seem like Jerome's mother did know of Neil's abuse and what he was doing to her child, but Jerome doesn't come right out and necessarily say it. Instead, he says, quote, "In order to avoid the reality of what was happening to me, she turned to alcohol. As the bottom of a bottle became a mirror to reflect her distorted version of reality." End quote. By the way, you will notice Jerome is a very skilled writer, and that is actually one of the things he does as a profession. So many of his quotes are very well crafted. So it does seem like Jerome's mother very much knew of what was going on and just let it keep happening, which is unfortunately super common in these cases. When Neil knew that Jerome would not speak of what was happening to him, he would introduce the young boy into a pedophile ring that Neil himself belonged to. For Jerome's initiation into the ring, he would be beaten and raped by each of the members. Jerome said, quote, "The first time I was trafficked sexually, I was handcuffed to a truck stop bathroom sink and raped and sodomized for the next 6 hours by a revolving door of perverted customers, consumed by the depth of depravity." End quote. Much like what we talked about in the Teresa Flores story, many of the clients that employed the services of the pedophile ring were pillars of the society. They were people that you would look up to in the community. They were doctors, lawyers, and elected officials, both male and female. Anyone who was willing to pay $500 or more could exploit someone like the young boy and could exploit Jerome. So this happened in hotel rooms, campers, and private residences. Horrifyingly, there were many times Jerome said that there were many times he was choked unconscious, bound, gagged, and raped while clients filmed and took pictures of themselves with the young boy. Jerome would even be pulled out of school for these sadistic acts. Again, much like what we saw in the Teresa Flores story. It didn't matter what day of the week it was or if it was a holiday or not. If someone was willing to pay, they could purchase time with him. He was given a name to use, also like Teresa, and he was never to stray from that name, not even if he would come in contact with law enforcement or doctors. There was one time that he had even been treating for cuts and bruises after a very violent client, and he would try and secretly ask the ER doctor for help. The doctor would not believe him. They thought he had made it up. The doctor would then tell the trafficker who brought him in, and he would suffer 3 broken ribs as punishment for trying to get help. I do want to mention, if you watched my last video, Percy Smith, I believe, one of the abuse victims, one of the things that she has really been pushing for is the way that doctors handle possible abuse victims when they come in to the ER or to an urgent care, because they can put them in so much danger when they speak in front of the wrong person or if they tell the wrong person something. So maybe if legislation like what she is trying to get passed would have been used in this circumstance, and the doctor wouldn't have been able to reach out to the man who was with Jerome, then maybe he wouldn't have ended up with 3 broken ribs. So Jerome would suffer through the abuse for 7 years From age 5 to age 12, he was very young, and he would be assaulted sexually and beaten by older men and women over and over again. While I have made a couple comparisons to Teresa Flores, the way Jerome would escape trafficking could not differ more from her story. Unfortunately for Jerome, the only way he could see as an out would be to try and take his own life. Jerome would stand in his mother's rose garden, only a 12-year-old boy, with sleeping pills and a bottle of vodka. He would watch his mother's house from the garden as smoke billowed into the sky. Jerome had set fire to his stepfather's pornography collection. Before he went to the rose garden, he set it by using the vodka. The 12-year-old boy would then take the bottle of pills and wash them down with the vodka that he had taken. And he said he would lay down in his mother's prized roses, and he would begin to slip away. For Jerome, he would say he felt peace slip over him in this moment. He saw his life flash before his eyes, both the good and bad memories. He says, quote, "Suddenly I was standing on a far-reaching plain of white fog, and I felt a presence that comforted me at my very core. A familiar voice that spoke to me, that resonated not only in my mind but also in the depths of my soul. It spoke to me as a long-lost friend, and I immediately realized that it was the voice of Steve, my friend who had died at the hands of the sex traffickers who had enslaved us. Quote, "This is not your time, and your pain in this world will no longer define you. It will guide you to who you were meant to be, and you will find a purpose in your life that will not only wash away the pain of your own life, but that of others who have suffered under the evil that lurks in the world," end quote, the voice said, end quote. When Jerome would wake, he would be in a hospital bed. He would be surrounded by doctors who had brought the young boy back after he had been gone for a total of 3 minutes. Jerome credits God for his survival and says that him being here today is a testament that there is always hope. Jerome Elam is a wonderful example of someone who has recovered from sex trafficking and that it is possible. You really have to look at it as a recovery process. It's not something someone is ever going to forget, but it is something that will stick around and you can learn to live with it or turn it into something good like he ends up doing. So when he was 17, he joined the United States Marine Corps, and he said that is what would ultimately save his life. He would be in the United States Marine Corps for 8 years before he would go to the University of Florida and earn a Bachelor of Science and work in biotechnology. Jerome would turn his struggles into motivation to speak about everything that he had endured and overcome. He has received the Award for Courage presented by the National Council of Jewish Women for his work in advocacy. In 2015, he was appointed as a special advisor to the Utah Attorney General on human trafficking. He has become a voice for those who do not have one, and in 2016, he founded an organization called Trafficking in America Task Force. He's the president and CEO. Their vision statement is, quote, "To help eliminate the human trafficking of women, men, and children in America, and to provide a culture for our children free of sexual exploitation and slavery where people know their own intrinsic value," end quote. While their mission statement is, quote, "Trafficking in America Task Force works together with local, state, global, and congressional lawmakers and trained global law enforcement, judges, prosecutors, medical and mental health professionals to help bring an end to the scourge of human trafficking," end quote. But his work does not stop with his organization. In 2021, he was appointed to the Office of Democratic Institutions and Human Rights inaugural International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Board. In 2023, Jerome was appointed again to the second cohort of ISTAC and elected vice chair by its members. He also received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the United States Attorney General's Alliance for his work in the global anti-trafficking field. So I'm going to end this story with another quote from Jerome Elam. Obviously, you can tell he has done so many amazing things and has turned his abuse and his tragedy and his trauma into something really good. But this one really inspires chills. Quote, "Human trafficking is a silent predator swallowing the innocence of our children as it profits from the pain and suffering of its countless victims. Lurking in the shadows of humanity, the evil that is human trafficking knows no boundaries and surpasses gender, social economic status, ethnicity, and race. The fragile nature of our reality is too often torn apart by the revelation of the horrific nature of human trafficking. Victims endure a lifetime of ravaged innocence and broken hopes and dreams, even if they are able to escape alive, which seldom, if ever, happens. We must unite as a society before the next innocent victim vanishes into the world that is nothing more than rape for profit." End quote. Jerome is a serious inspiration, like I said, and a wonderful advocate for human trafficking and child sex trafficking for those who don't have a voice. I do want to say that if you or anyone you know could be involved in a situation like this, like in Jerome's case, a lot of these people are trafficked by those that are closest to them. There are resources. Don't ever give up. I have the human trafficking hotline linked down below, and this is just one of the resources that you can reach out to. They have a quick exit on the website in case you're looking it up and somebody comes up that can't see it. And you can also text them. You can text them, you can live chat them, you can call them. Also, if you are having thoughts of suicide, please let someone know. I have that hotline down in the description box as well. Never give up. As Jerome said, there is always hope. Don't forget that. I'm pretty sure he is 100% happy that his suicide attempt was not successful, because had it been, he would not be helping all the people he is today. So that's all for today's video. This one was a pretty heavy one, but we have to continue talking about these cases to try and incite some change and bring education to everyone who does not realize what's going on around them. If you have not already done so, please make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications. If you have any case suggestions, please send them to killerconceptsvlog@gmail.com or comment them down below. You can also connect with me on social. All of the links for that are down below in the description box, as well as all my sources. I will also, like I said, make sure to link Hope Inspire Love down below as well. That is where I got my sweatshirt. You may consider them a little pricey depending on what you're getting, but it is totally worth it. They have a wonderful mission, and you should really check them out, as well as Jerome's organization. So before you go, just remember that the world's most dangerous minds hide in the most unlikely places. Stay safe.